Most owners try to stop their dog from jumping on people by responding to the jump. The knee up, the turn away, the firm down, the repeated no that lands in the moment and evaporates the second the next person walks through the door. They are working on the jump itself, treating it as the problem, responding to it as the problem, measuring progress by whether it happened or not. The jump is not the problem. The jump is the solution your dog arrived at, the specific behavior she landed on after learning what reliably produced what she was after. And until you understand what she was after and why jumping became the most reliable way to get it, you will keep responding to a symptom while the cause keeps generating new ones. You know how this goes. She has been told no 1,000 times, and she jumps on the next person anyway. She knows sit. She performs it beautifully in the kitchen, and in the presence of a visitor, she performs it 0 times. Guests tell her down, which she ignores. Children get knocked over. You apologize. She jumps again. The correction that worked in training does not transfer to the front door, and you cannot understand why. By the end of this, you will understand exactly why, and you will have the specific framework that stops the jumping, not by suppressing it, but by making it unnecessary, which is the only fix that actually holds. Before the framework, the one thing about jumping that changes everything once you know it. Your dog is not jumping to be dominant. She is not jumping to show she is in charge, or to test you, or because she lacks respect for personal space in some moral sense. She is jumping because jumping has worked. It has produced the things she wanted: attention, engagement, contact, the face of a person turning toward her, with a reliability that reinforces it every single time. Even the corrections reinforce it. The knee in the chest is attention. The firm no is engagement. The turn away, if she follows your face, is interaction. Every response to the jump that involves your eyes, your voice, your body moving because of her body, teaches her that jumping is effective. She does not register the emotional valence of your response. She registers the attention. This is the root, and the framework that follows is built entirely around it. The first piece of the framework is the hardest to accept because it requires nothing that feels like training. Every person who interacts with your dog must deliver the same response to jumping, consistently, without exception, beginning from the first interaction and continuing through every subsequent one. That response is complete and total removal of attention, not the knee, not the turn away that follows the jump, the turn away that begins the moment you read that the jump is coming. Eyes off, body turned, every social signal withdrawn before her paws leave the ground, or the instant they do, so that the jump lands on an absence rather than a presence. No sound, no eye contact, no touch, nothing that could be registered as engagement. She jumped into a void, and the void gave her nothing. This is the piece most owners miss entirely. The turn away that comes after the jump has already been partially rewarding. She had your attention long enough to produce the jump, and the turnaway is still a response she caused. The response that breaks the pattern comes before the full jump, at the approach, at the pre-jump posture, before the investment has been made and landed. She needs to learn not that jumping produces a delayed negative outcome, but that jumping does not produce an outcome at all. Partial delivery of this, one household member maintaining it while another greets her with full enthusiasm, resets the reinforcement history to 0. She needs one exception to believe the exception is possible, and she will probe for it every time. Every person, every time, without exception. That is the standard the framework requires, and the standard is either met or it is not. The second piece is what happens the moment 4 paws are on the floor. The instant she is not jumping, the moment the paws land, the moment the approach is calm, the nanosecond of 4 on the floor, that moment receives everything. Full attention, immediate engagement, the warmest and most genuine response you can produce. Not delayed, not rationed, instant and complete. She is not being rewarded for anything she had to do. She is being rewarded for the natural state of not jumping. What you are building is not sit instead of jump. That requires a behavior she must perform, a cognitive step she must take in the presence of excitement she can barely contain. You are building the association that 4 paws on the floor is the behavior that opens the world to her. That calm approach is what produces what she was jumping for. The reward does not have to be food. In most dogs, the thing they were jumping for is more rewarding than food in that moment. Your face, your attention, your body orienting toward them, that is the reward. The instant, warm, complete delivery of the thing the jump was trying to extract, given freely to the dog who did not jump. The third piece is the management of the environment during the learning period. Learning does not happen above threshold. A dog who is in a state of high excitement at the front door, who has been rehearsing this moment for years, whose nervous system fires the jumping pattern before a conscious process has any chance to intervene, is not in a state where new associations form easily. Behavioral observation of dogs in habit change protocols establishes that the replacement of a well-rehearsed behavior requires significant reduction in the opportunity to rehearse the old one during the period when the new association is building. Every jump that still succeeds in producing attention is the old behavior being practiced. Every repetition of the old behavior makes the new one harder to establish. This means managing the door during the learning period, not through punishment, through structure. She is on a leash when guests arrive, so the jump cannot fully execute. She is behind a gate until the initial excitement peak has passed. She is in a sit before the door opens, held there long enough for her nervous system to step down from the peak that makes the pattern automatic. Not because these structures are the permanent solution, because they reduce the rehearsal of the jump while the new association is being built. When the association is built, when 4 paws on the floor has been rewarded enough times, in enough contexts, with enough different people, that it has become the reflex rather than the jump, the structure is no longer needed. The behavior changed because the history changed, and the new history holds without the leash. The fourth piece is the generalization, and why the kitchen does not prepare her for the front door. She knows sit. She sits beautifully in the kitchen. She sits reliably on the walk when there are no other dogs. She sits on command in every context where her nervous system is in a workable state. The front door is not a workable state. The front door is the most exciting location in her world, associated with the arrivals of people she loves, saturated with the history of the jumping that used to work. Asking for a sit at the front door in the early stages of this work is asking for a behavior in the context where it is hardest to produce. The equivalent of asking someone to do their best thinking in the middle of the most distracting moment of their day. Generalization requires specific training in the specific context. Not just sit in the kitchen. Sit at the front door when no one is arriving, until the association of door plus sit is strong. Then sit at the front door with one low-key person arriving. Then sit with the person she finds most exciting. The progression is earned by performance, not by calendar. Each level is practiced until it is solid before the next level is attempted. Researchers studying canine learning have documented that behaviors trained in one context transfer to different contexts at a rate that is much slower than owners expect, and that deliberate training in the specific high-difficulty context consistently outperforms, hoping the behavior will generalize on its own. Train at the door. It is the only way to build a reliable behavior at the door. Most owners think the goal is a dog who stops jumping when told. A dog who, in the presence of a guest, hears the command and suppresses the jump, because the command carries weight. Control as the mechanism. Owner authority as the solution. Flip that. The goal is a dog who does not jump because jumping stopped being the answer, because the history of jumping is a history of producing nothing, and the history of 4 paws on the floor is a history of producing everything she was after. She is not suppressing the impulse out of obedience. The impulse is different now. The association changed. The jump stopped making sense. That dog does not need to be told not to jump at the front door. She does not need management or correction or a command in the moment. She greets your guests with 4 paws on the floor because 4 paws on the floor is what has always worked. And the jump is a behavior that belongs to a history she no longer has. Think about what that looks like from her side. Right now, the front door is the most complicated moment of her day. The excitement is at its peak. The pattern is deeply grooved, and the responses she receives are inconsistent enough to keep the jump alive as a strategy. She is not making a choice to misbehave. She is executing the behavior that history told her to execute, in the context where that history was built. Now imagine that history rewritten. Not through 100 corrections, through 100 repetitions of arriving calmly and having the world open up completely, through 100 front door moments where the paws stayed down and everything she wanted appeared. That dog exists. She is your dog with different data. She is not a jumping dog. She is a dog who learned to jump because it worked, and who will learn something else when something else works better. Give her better data. Be consistent. Be instant. Be generous when the paws stay down. She will do the rest. And one day soon, sooner than you think, a guest will walk through the door, and she will stand there, 4 paws on the floor, tail going, waiting for the world to open the way it has learned to open. And you will remember what it used to look like, and you will know that you changed it, not by stopping the jump, by making the jump unnecessary. Who is the hardest person for your dog to stay calm around when they arrive? And has there been one person whose response accidentally made the jumping worse? Tell me in the comments. If this is the kind of understanding you want to keep building, subscribing means the next one finds you.